Good evening, everybody. My name is Chris Barth. I'm a Public Information Officer with Pacific Northwest Team 2. I wanted to welcome you all to the virtual public meeting for the Cameron Peak and the Thompson Zone of the East Troublesome Fire. Tonight, it's Monday, November 2nd, and this is our update for you about both the fires and what's going on. As of this morning, the Cameron Peak fire was 208,913 acres and 85% contained. On the Thompson Zone, the fire is 4,889 acres with 31% containment. Again, as of this morning, there was 1,202 personnel assigned to the fires. Tonight for our update, we're going to provide an update or some information about the fire weather with our incident meteorologist, Dan Byrd. Then we're going to be hearing from our operations section chief, Kyle Cannon, followed by Sheriff Justin Smith with the Larimer County Sheriff's Office, and then finally some closing comments from our incident commander, Rob Allen. As we've done in these meetings in the past, we will be doing questions and answers afterwards, so we appreciate those questions coming into us. We have folks that are monitoring those and will be feeding those back to us. They're also going to be trying to answer those questions as they come in, so you might see a response coming to you right away. And lastly, I just want to pass on to folks that this will be recorded, so you can watch it later and share it with your friends so that everybody can have the latest update about the fire. So with that, I'd like to hand off the mic to our incident meteorologist, Dan Byrd.
All right, good evening, everyone. I'm Dan Byrd, the IMET on the fire. So pretty warm temperatures over the fire today. Saw high temperatures over most of the fires. They climbed up to around 60 degrees. It was really dry. Our arches fell into the low to mid-teens today. In lower elevations, temperatures are warmer down here in Loveland. We got up to about 70 degrees, and the RHs were still pretty dry down here. As we progress through into tomorrow's going to be very similar to today. We're still going to see RHs fall down into the teens once again tomorrow, but the winds are going to be relatively light out of the west across most of the fire. Could see some gusts to 20 or so tomorrow afternoon. Bit of a change as we get into Tuesday night into Wednesday. A cold front's going to approach the area Tuesday evening and is going to move across the fire Tuesday night into Wednesday. The winds are going to pick up a little bit out of the west. Could see some gusts 30 to 35 miles per hour over much of the fire Tuesday night through much of Wednesday, so some pretty gusty winds. The RHs won't be quite as dry on Wednesday. RHs will probably be in the 25 to 30% range on Wednesday, but the winds will be relatively strong through much of Wednesday. But high pressure ridging will build back in as we get into Thursday and into Friday. Thursday temperatures are going to be pretty much about like they are today, upper 50s to around 60 degrees on Thursday, relative humidities in the mid to upper 20% range to around 30% range, just depending on the elevation that you're at in the fire. Looks like some changes, though, as we progress into Friday, into the weekend. Friday, once again, going to be a little bit increase in clouds. Temperatures are going to be pretty warm, around 60 degrees once again on Friday across most of the fire, but a pretty strong storm system is going to deepen over the western United States Friday as we get into Friday into Saturday. And then Friday, out ahead of that storm system, the winds will pick up through the afternoon hours. Could see some gusts 30 to 35 miles per hour out of the southwest on Friday. And Saturday is when it really looks like that storm system will get a little bit closer to the fire. As we get to Saturday, the winds could become pretty strong. We could see some gusts on Saturday out of the west to about 45 miles per hour. But on Saturday, the temperatures will be a little bit cooler, and the RHs will be a little bit higher, probably the 30 to 40% min RHs on Saturday. But once again, the winds will be pretty strong out of the west with gusts 45 miles per hour. That storm system will move through the region as we get into Sunday into Monday, and we could see a little bit of showery or snow activity depending on your elevation on Sunday. Right now, it doesn't look like we're going to see any heavy amounts. We could see anywhere up to a quarter inch across portions of the fire on Sunday into Monday, so it really looks like light amounts as we progress through Sunday, and it really looks like those cold temperatures are going to pretty much keep us, or the cold temperatures are pretty much going to hang around through much of next week. The way it looks right now, temperatures on Sunday are going to fall across the fire. Highs are probably going to be about 30 degrees and even colder temperatures as we get into next week. I'm not really seeing any chances for any heavy snow, but it looks like we could see at least some light snow once again for Sunday and then possibly into next week. That's all I have. Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Kyle Cannon, Operations Section Chief for Pacific Northwest Team 2. So the last couple of days or through the weekend, that continued warm, dry weather has really been helpful for us, not only to have the snow melt back so we can get in up on the fire line and really see how the snow affected our fire in the areas that we are concerned about, but it also has dried out the fuels a bit, which has allowed some smoke to show and has allowed us to go in there and focus our attention on those areas to try to pick them up and get them secured and put out along the edge so we don't have any further problems with fire spread. So it was a really good weekend across the entire fire as far as work goes. So I'll go quickly around the fire, starting in the Thompson Zone on the East Troublesome Fire. We made good progress on the east side of that piece of fire in Rocky Mountain National Park. We had crews going direct along the fire's edge on both the north and the south sides, cold trailing, which is walking the fire's edge, making sure that it's all cold along that edge, and where there's areas of heat, we're mopping that up and securing it so it won't move again. So we've got good progress going on there. We also have some indirect options that are in place to prevent fire from spreading east into Estes, so we're making good progress again there. Over the weekend also we put a lot of effort into the south side of the Cameron Peak fire, in particular from Cedar Park all the way out to Glen Haven. There was quite a bit of smoke and heat showing on infrared throughout the weekend, and with that drying, we were able to get crews in on the ground in those areas and mop up those hot areas. And you can notice that that whole piece along there we've turned black, which means we feel pretty confident, very confident that containment that the line is secure, and we called it contained. So that's some good work. You may see some additional smoke in there, especially up on the hillside, but for the most part, those are going to be interior smokes that while they've put up some smoke, they aren't really a threat to that fire perimeter. And but we will have a presence in there, continued presence, mopping up and backhauling equipment as well as repair over the next few days. One of our areas of concern is this slop over the North Fork Trail here. That's up in the wilderness. It's still quite a bit of snow in there, but as things continue to dry and warm, if we don't get more moisture, that's definitely an area of concern. We have some plans to insert ground personnel, perhaps, certainly aviation assets, and we also have some indirect options that we're looking at depending on the effects of snow as it melts on that piece of fire. So that's definitely a place to keep an eye on. I also want to mention out here at Pingree at the CSU Mountain Campus, there is some smoke out here in this area. We've had drones monitoring that area, taking a look at it. We had folks in there today, or ground personnel in there today, mopping up around the structures, and so that's pretty secure, but we do have an area of smoke that's out in there that we're keeping an eye on and monitoring. Coming around onto the east side of the fire in Division Uniform and Victor, as well as into Tango. You notice here Buckhorn, as well as around Elk Creek over the last 3 or 4 days. Made a lot of good progress in there. We also believe that piece that we were concerned about prior to the snow is real solid. The likelihood of fire coming out of there is real remote, and so we called that contained. We will, however, still continue to have folks in there, not only mopping up and monitoring, but also backhauling and repairing in there as well. Coming around onto the north side of the fire, full repair for the most part. If you notice those little pieces of red that we've been talking about, we were able over the weekend to get a look at those. They're very good. Lots of snow up there. Feel pretty secure that there's no issues. So we turned all of those contained as well. So our focus on the north end for the most part remains on repair and getting all that repair work done before winter comes on. Just to kind of close, we also expect tomorrow to have some additional containment here on the south side of East Troublesome, on the Thompson Zone, as well as in here in this middle part along the moraine. We're also expecting some additional containment to be called in there based upon our flights today, and we're going to call around the CSU Mountain Campus, have some containment in there as well. So that's the good news. Appreciate it.
Good evening. Justin Smith, your county sheriff, and I guess I'm really pleased to be here tonight with this team for the first time since August 12th to be able to share the news that we have no evacuations left in the county. Every property owner is back and able to get to their properties, which is a goal. We've worked with these teams that have been here for I believe 83 or 84 days to get there. So certainly to lift those last restrictions that were on the upper Buckhorn on 44H, along with the areas around Glen Haven and Storm Mountain, was a huge advance that we've been fighting to get to. So we're pleased that we're there. With that said, we also recognize while everybody's able to get back to these properties, there's over 400 and I believe about 450 structures that were destroyed by this fire. 220 of those were a residence of some type, with 30 of those have been documented as primary residents. So with that said, as nice and relieving as it is to get people back to their properties, we recognize the process is still long and the grieving will be significant for many residents and certainly those who lost their primary home. I know there's a long road ahead. I know there's also a lot of agencies that are coming forward and individuals to help you through that process. So know that we do recognize that for all the joy of getting people back to their properties, for a lot of folks, it's still a sad time. With those evacuations lifted, I just want to share with you a couple of messages. One is, while the roadblocks are no longer in place, it does not mean that the Sheriff's Office has gone back to normal operations by any means. We're still actively working with the fire team. As you heard from the discussions, still active fire back there being worked. And with that, we will continue for the foreseeable future to have extra deputies patrolling those areas. We're very thankful for all the police agencies, for the National Guard that have been out here since the last part of August assisting, and I can't adequately thank every one of those folks that came to help out, but we should be able to be back to just Larimer County Sheriff's Office personnel, and we want to have them in the areas to continue to keep an eye on properties, also to kind of watch for people that may not have any business being in the area. And the other thing that we're going to continue to do is actively watch after those smoke reports. The team is very busy doing a lot of different things, and we know as you get back into your properties, you can expect to see puffs of smoke in the area for some time. This fire is certainly not out. And with that said, by having deputies back there, part of what we want to be able to do is be able to put eyes on that and report it to the appropriate folks and not be moving resources unnecessarily from the fire team or overloading our volunteer fire departments in those remote areas. So our personnel will continue to do those things while they're out there. And with that, again, we're certainly not done. There's still a lot of work to be completed, but I want to express my gratitude to the teams that have been in here that have gotten us this far and have worked so hard to make a difference, to the agencies that have helped, and most importantly, to each and every one of you. It's been an extremely difficult time. When this thing began on August 13th, no one had any idea that a fire starting up in the Cameron Peak area would last this long and go this far across the county and would tax and challenge so many people. We've had unprecedented numbers of evacuations over that time. Some individuals and families have been in and out at least a couple of times from their properties, and we know it was very difficult. We've done our best to be able to make that as easy as possible. And again, for those who have actually lost property and lost homes, certainly, our thoughts and prayers go out to you. It's an amazing challenge. It's not just losing a structure. It's a part of your life. It's your memories, etc. And we'll continue to work with you and know that the county in general, emergency management will really be stepping in on the recovery process on private homes, just as the Forest Service and federal land agencies will be dealing with that restoration. The county will, through emergency management, have folks available to help you out through this process and at least ease some of your difficulties and challenges. So with that, some very pleasing news, but at the same time I recognize there's still challenges ahead. So thank you for your patience.
Thank you, Sheriff, and good evening. My name is Rob Allen. I'm the Incident Commander for Pacific Northwest Team 2, and it's a pleasure to chat with you again tonight. Some of the things that we're talking about here, and I'm sure that right on everybody's mind is, okay, so now we've opened it up to the public to come back in. When are we going to open up the forest and the park? And to know that we're in those conversations right now, and a part of that we are all very keenly aware of, too, is also the hunting units that are out there that we'd like to be able to get into. I know that we're missing several staff members on this team because of hunts that they're on right now, so it's important to all of us to make sure that we get that going on. It takes us a little bit longer to be able to open parts of the forest up and the park. We were on those conversations today, and then the park's going through their procedures to do that. I know that talking with the Forest Service today, they're looking at shrinking down part of their closures, and that takes a little while to get that through the system, so sometime midweek we should be hearing about that. Part of what we're looking at as we start looking at shrinking down closures and getting people back into is, as you've heard, there's still over 1,000 people working on this fire. There will be for quite a while yet. When we look at all of the dozer lines that are out there and the hand lines, we've put that all up on our map, and it comes out to be about 215 miles of dozer line and hand line that need to be repaired. And some might ask, why don't we just leave that in place for the next time we have a fire here? And that problem with that is that if we leave that ground open, we'll end up with erosion after that, and it will cause more problems than it is leaving it open. We'll kind of come back in, and what we like to do is try to find some of those places that are on key ridges that we will probably use again in the future, and we might not repair those as heavily as we do the other ones, but it's important to get out there and cover up the 215 miles of line, and there's some 500 other disturbances that are out there where either we had a drop zone or a safety zone or some other area that we've cleared off to store equipment or something that needs to be cleaned up and make sure that we don't cause any more hazard or any more harm to the environment than we already have from the fire and the work that we've done. So we'll keep working on that to get that done. The forest and the park are working as quickly as they can to, when it's safe, to be able to open up parts of that so we can get back to recreating in those areas. One of the other questions that we heard today is East Troublesome still a concern spotting over or what's happening with that fire? We haven't talked about that much here on our programs here, but the Type 1 team that was over there happens to be the other Type 1 team from Pacific Northwest, PNW 3. They traveled home today. They transitioned that fire down to a Type 3 incident. So there's a Type 3 management team over there watching that. I've been in conversations with their IC this morning. We'll be talking every day to make sure if they have any issues and they need some help, we'll be more than happy to assist them. But things are looking really good over there, very secure. No, not really worried about anything coming up and over the divide again. That was certainly a momentous occasion that we'll be talking about for a long time, but not seeing that issue right now. That brings us up to where we are right now, too. We're halfway through our rotation here and starting to talk with both the Park Service, the Forest Service, and the state on what will look like that we need to have replace us. And part of that will depend on how much work we can get done this week with the favorable weather, being able to get out there and start that repair work as we transition out of suppression and into repair. As we start doing that, just in mind that we still have the assets that we need if the fire starts to move in some of those areas that Kyle pointed out that would be an issue or we have concerns about. We'll be keeping an eye on those, looking at the weather and our fire behavior predictions right now, not looking like anything that's going to be a huge threat for us here in the near future, giving us some time to get through there. One of the other things that people might ask about is how do we get such a great map that looks like this so that we can pass along that information to folks as we're moving. And it takes a huge operation. It's one of the fun jobs that we get to do every now and then is kind of tout how good our team is here, the Pacific Northwest team. But our folks are out in the field with iPads and their phones, and they're collecting information. They're collecting data out there. They bring that information back into here. There's a whole plan section that does nothing but create those incident action plans that we put out. They create all of our maps. We've got several large plotters in here. All the products that you see that are here are developed by our team right here on site so that we can have this available for our operations here. And you'll see as we transition out of the suppression mode into repair, the map will change into having different colors on it, and a lot of the dozer lines that you see up there will go from being black to being yellow to being green, meaning that they've been repaired, and we can move on to the next one. So that's our next big challenge out here. There'll still be a lot of people out working, so please be mindful of them on the roads and as we're moving around. And as we get to start opening up parts of the forest, remember that we're still out there moving around trying to get heavy equipment up and down and into places so that they can get started on the repair work while we have that window. So I appreciate your attention tonight, and we'll be around to answer questions. Thank you.
All right, thanks everybody. I want to thank all of our speakers that presented information tonight, let you know about what's going on, and again, another great news about the lifting of the evacuations, and still, as everybody said, there's still some more work ahead. I did want to provide an update from Poudre Valley Rural Electric Association, who shared with us this afternoon that Poudre Valley Rural Electric Association is just a few members without power in the Pingree Park area. Crews will continue to do repairs here and in the Buckskin Heights until all infrastructure is restored. The power line feeding the Lutheran camp is being rebuilt, and they will post updates as that construction progresses. So with that, I wanted to go into our question and answer period of the virtual public meeting, and we have a person who's going to be feeding us questions, so I'll just ask Cale. Cale, who do we have, what kind of questions do we have to start off with tonight?
Thanks, Chris. We'll start off with Operations Chief Kyle Cannon, and we'll start with a very respectful question from a civilian in Glen Haven. We appreciate this because it brings up an important point. I'm in Glen Haven. Am I allowed to use my drone?
So at this time, no. There's a temporary flight restriction over the entire fire area, basically to protect the safety of our flight crews. We have a restriction from flying, and that includes drones. So at this point, no, you are not allowed to do so.
And the catchphrase the firefighters use is, if you fly, we can't, right? So maybe explain to somebody, if a drone goes up and we know it, what happens?
Yeah, so if any of our firefighters or any of our aviators see a drone that's off the ground and operating, every piece of aircraft on the fire has to shut down until that's dealt with. And so really, if you fly your drone, we cannot fly at all. And it could really hamper our operation for sure. So please don't.
Great, thanks. And sometimes we do put out a hashtag, if you fly, we can't. So thanks for that person. Should civilians be watching for folks now that they're back home?
Say that again?
Should folks be watching for smoke now that they're back home?
Sure. Definitely you need to keep an eye out, be thinking about what's going on around you. Certainly this area here on the southwest side of North Fork is a concern, and I certainly wouldn't be complacent. That said, I would expect to see some light smoke all along this area as well as in the park as the season goes on, and certainly if things dry, that's definitely a possibility. And rest assured, there will be folks out there keeping an eye on that and be set up to address it if there's a problem.
Great, thanks. And we do see black line now on the East Troublesome Thompson Zone there on the east side. Mm-hmm. Can you talk about whether you'll need to use any kind of heavy equipment in there, like a bulldozer? Yeah,
so the previous team and ourselves were authorized to use heavy equipment in certain locations in the park that was not needed. Hand crews were sufficient. And at this point, we don't anticipate the need to utilize a lot of heavy equipment or equipment off of the road systems at this time.
Great, thanks. And for folks at home, there is a video up this afternoon of crews working that hand line, so you can see them actually with their tools out there in Estes. And then how about a repair question, Kyle? Are you repairing dozer lines and hand lines in the forest that are difficult to access?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think Rob kind of touched on it. The point of repair, right, is to reduce erosion, to not cause further damage. And so every line that's out there that we can get to before the snow flies too deep to get in there, we will continue to work on that and get those repaired, and so they don't cause more erosion, cause more problems.
And then the second half of the question is really astute. Do fire managers use those lines in the future once they're covered up? Do they uncover them if they're ever needed in another incident?
Yeah, absolutely. The lines that are in the right locations that were useful and we think in the future may be useful, they may be repaired a little bit differently, so they aren't. So they're able to be opened again quickly and efficiently to stop the next fire. So definitely, that's part of how we look at things.
Okay, great, thanks. And we'll go to our Incident Commander, Rob Allen. And Rob, you did answer most of the questions because we were sending them to you before you went on.
I was trying to get all those for you.
We appreciate that. A lot of dead trees out there. We know we're in the repair phase. Folks ask about, are there going to be any clearing of dead trees?
There will not be any clearing of dead trees. Those are what we refer to as gravity hazards, and we try to stay out of those areas whenever we can. Certainly the hazard trees that are along the roadways, that are along our trail systems and things like that will take us quite a while to get around to removing those. But that'll be the next step, is making things secure for the public to be able to come back in and use those areas. But if you're talking about any of the big areas where we have large swaths of dead trees, that's beyond our capacity to work on.
Okay, great. And then somebody did ask about the Byrd team, the Byrd Area Emergency Response Team. and maybe some timelines for them working in the fire area?
They're already here. They've already started. I have not heard from them recently, but they are here and they are working forward. One of the other questions that I had got pinged to me earlier was about repairing dozer lines on private land. And we sent out a message earlier today, working with the Sheriff's Department, to check with folks who are interested in doing that. And we've had our state partners are working closely with us to help us identify places where we need to get in and do that, and we'll do that same repair. Now, there's a difference between the suppression repair work, which is what we're also doing. Anything that we damaged in the course of trying to fight the fire is something that we'll repair. Anything that the fire has damaged itself is rehab work, and that's stuff that will be done under other authorities and with other dollars. I can actually, as the incident commander, can only authorize the spending of suppression dollars on things that happened on this fire that we did. Anything that the fire did itself will have to come out of other grants and other agreements.
Okay, one last question for you, Rob. Thank you. We're halfway through our assignment. A lot of folks always wonder what's next after this team. Will there be a team here for them, and what does the future going to look like?
Yeah, I talked about that a little bit earlier. That's one of the things that we've been talking about even just a couple hours ago. Myself and the park and the Forest Service are talking about what will look next. Looking at just out right now, even with having the really good weather it looks like we're going to have this week, and access still getting better, we still don't have access to all of the places we'd like to get to because of the snow. So in that going on, the amount of work with, like I said, 215 miles of line to repair, it's looking most likely like another Type 2 team would come in behind us. And as we look at our glide path, we're halfway through, so we'll be ordering that team and then looking at whether or not what the division of labor looks like between the two fires, the Cameron Peak, and then what the Thompson Zone looks like, and whether or not we kind of split that out a little bit so we can focus on our own priorities or how we pull that together. But those are conversations we'll be having in the next couple of days, knowing that firefighting resources are in short supply this time of year, and going to find a Type 2 team to come this way. We might end up out in the Pacific Northwest again to pull that. So needing to get that order in soon so that they can travel here, be able to shadow with us so we can download all the information that we have now to them, and then have them take over so we can get home and get some rest and be prepared to go out again if we need to.
Okay, great. Thanks, Rob. And finally, we'll bring up our sheriff again, Justin Smith, for a couple questions. Again, very concerned population out there, lots of people thinking ahead. Are folks able to use their wood stoves right now, Sheriff?
For wood stoves, those still fall within the permissible, within our fire restrictions. So, yes, I would just encourage you to go to the county's website, larimer.org. You can check on the fire restrictions link. It'll give that. But as long as it's inside and traditional stove. Now, any outside burning is still restricted, and the county just extended those a few days ago and expect those to hold for a while on outdoor, but certainly indoor remains permissible.
Okay, great, thanks. And what would you say to folks who might want to go up and just to have a look around the fire area?
As we're getting residents and homeowners back in, our personal request is for those that don't have property, give it some time for folks, number one, to get back in those properties. And as the team just mentioned, there are still fire crews up there, and the more traffic that's on the road, the more difficult it is. So I would encourage people to give it a little bit more time as they wait through that. But if you are up there, be extremely careful because you can find fire crews anywhere. And I think to a previous question about downed trees, one of the things that we're certainly prepared for is even on the county roads, forest roads, private roads, et cetera, we anticipate in some of those areas to have continually falling trees. So, anybody that's up there needs to be prepared for that. Personally, I travel with a chainsaw and a tow strap, and I think for residents, that's going to be the norm for quite some time.
Okay, great. And final question for you, Sheriff. Thank you. Any update on the cause?
I have nothing on the cause. That investigation is on the Forest Service land, so that's being handled by Forest Service investigators. I do know the preliminary investigation revealed it to believe to be human caused. There was in fact no lightning documented in the area at the time. So the Forest Service will be the ones to bring that forward. And if I can have just a quick moment, something I forgot to bring up before is through the county, we had the Joint Information Center that was meant to answer residents' questions, mostly about the evacuations and how they were impacted. After 45 days of that being open and staffed with a variety of people, we did wind that down at the end of the day. However, information will still be made available. That same phone number that's published will continue to, as needed and as things change, have a fairly lengthy recorded message that we build based on the questions that come to us. So you can still call that number, and it does leave the opportunity to leave a question. Just understand that we won't have people directly on those lines necessarily. We'll just have staff from our public information office that pulls those calls down. So I think we're to the point it's not necessary to staff that up, but we have ramped that down, but it doesn't mean that information's not available. It just won't be a room full of people from here on out if things continue as we anticipate.
Okay, great. Thank you, Sheriff, and we'll pass it back to our host, Chris Barth.
Thanks, Sheriff, and thanks all of our speakers. Appreciate all of your questions coming in. We will continue to monitor those and continue answering questions. Try and stay engaged with you throughout the day. I did want to just say, some of those things that were shared today, Sheriff just talking about the Joint Information Center changes. Our Incident Commander, Rob Allen, spoke about information and suppression repair needs on private lands. We work really closely with all the agencies and our partners to get those messages out. We want to provide you with information as quickly and as timely and accurately as we can. So all that stuff is happening. So where are we going from here with our messaging and trying to outreach and give you the latest information about both of the fires? We will continue to have our 8:30 live Facebook events about the Cameron and Thompson Zone fires. Those will happen again at 8:30, and we'll continue through this Thursday that we're planning to offer those and provide you with a variety of content and speakers, so stay tuned for that. We are planning to have our next virtual public meeting on Friday, this Friday coming up, so we will come to you live again 7:30 in the evening next Friday, or this upcoming Friday. And then you can always find information on INCIWeb, on Facebook, through emails, getting information out as many ways as possible. Cale mentioned that those videos that are available on YouTube, where you can see the great content of the folks that are out there doing the work, the drone flights, the people doing the suppression repair, looking for smokes, all that stuff is available to you 24 hours a day. We appreciate your time tonight, and thank you for tuning in.